Okay.
Hold on, still I'm waiting.
Welcome to WND Live. This is WorldNetDaily's live coverage of the first presidential debate of 2024 between the presumed nominees, President Joe Biden and President Donald J. Trump. My name is Matt Edwards. I'll be your host for this evening. And I want to bring in our panel here for this evening. With us here is our co-host John Turnbow, founder of WND, Elizabeth Farah, and David Kopelian, the managing editor of WorldNetDaily. Hello, folks. Welcome this evening. Are you all look excited as I am?
Very excited, Matt. Very excited.
Excellent. Okay. Well, you know, we got to get right into these topics. We got about a half hour before the show truly begins here. And as we have been preparing, you know, since they announced these debates that have started happening a few weeks ago, the rules for tonight are kind of like the big headline leading into this. And some of the rules, you know, involve, you know, the microphones being cut off, turned on and off. There's no live audience in tow to react to any of the quips that may be happening. And of course, the moderators are CNN. Well, I'll let you guys describe how you want to describe the moderators, but Elizabeth, let me bring you in here. What are your special thoughts tonight regarding the rules that have been put in place here by CNN?
Well, I think that the rules are obviously the worst rule for Donald Trump is the lack of audience, because it's not natural for a communicator, or for anybody for that matter, to speak to nobody. And essentially those two moderators down there without an audience is like speaking to an empty room. Now with Biden, he's almost always in his mind in an empty room. He's out of his context or out of reality in so many ways. But Donald Trump is a normal human being and a great communicator. And that response and the energy from the audience, even negative energy, would be better than having an empty room. So this is utterly biased against him, of course.
Absolutely. Josh, you've been following this along and preparing for this program, for this show tonight.
Yeah.
What's your perspective, man? What are you expecting with these special rules that have been put in place that are obviously, I mean, to most of us, to Biden's advantage?
Yeah, we've really never seen anything like this as far as like a television production with all the restrictions for anyone that wants to stream or restream the product. So there's all these specific rules about you can show the CNN stream, you can't put your logo over it. Everybody doesn't really know what the rules are. They're kind of intentionally like that. Plus, we just are hearing that there'll be a 2-minute delay, and that's on top of having muted microphones. So essentially, like, you know, part of a debate is people do interrupt each other. They do cut in. Donald Trump is renowned for this, having the biggest zingers in the world. We'll have one of those to show you. So this is, I think David actually said earlier, this isn't really a debate.
No, It's not a debate if you can't talk to each other. But, you know, the 35,000-foot view of this is that Donald Trump is a brilliant orator who, before the last election, was doing 5 rallies per day, and just brilliant in front of huge overflow audiences. And Joe Biden was talking in a parking lot to 24 people, and he's gone way downhill since then. So, you know, the rules are entirely created in order to give the advantage to Biden by, as Elizabeth said, there's no audience, there's no actual debating where you can interrupt and say, there you go again. There's none of that. And it's just designed to give the maximum advantage to Joe Biden and the maximum disadvantage to Donald Trump, who they loathe and want to go away.
That actually brings up, we have a clip of this that's actually just a perfect example of what the previous debate with Trump and his ability to kind of riff looks like. And we're going to go to that now.
One of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account...
Thank you.
Wow. I mean, and that was
She
the
looked
first debate in
beautiful, by the way.
2016, right?
Yeah. And he
You know,
thanks
you
the
were
audience.
talking. Oh, sorry. You were talking about those mic drop moments, and we have all these clips. But it's almost impossible to have a mic drop moment. All these famous one-liners that will almost be impossible to do in this debate.
Do you think, folks, that there's also an advantage to the fact that Biden, because Biden's history is also one of quips and quick comments and stuff, early in his Senate career and everything like that. Do you think there also might be a little bit of an advantage to Trump in this situation, that he does, if he has the microphone, there can't be that interruption for him? And he's pretty good when it comes to delivering certain, at least, if he's being serious about a policy, or if he wants to take the microphone and use it for a line that he wants to deliver for one of those mic drop moments. Do you think there might be some advantage that Trump could take on here?
Yeah, because see, Trump, he knows the rules. He's been thinking about it and preparing for it, however he has for the last while. And so he is going to optimize what it was created as a disadvantage for him. But what you just said, okay, he can't be interrupted either. He has this amount of time. So, and he is brilliant. He is simply a brilliant orator in addition to whatever else he is. And so, yes, he will maximize and optimize the rules, however negative they are and however malevolent they were in their creation. He'll optimize it for sure.
Good point.
Yeah. Elizabeth, anything else to add to that?
Well, I was going to say that I was frustrated with the Trump team when I first heard the rules, because I thought, why? Why would you set yourself up to be in such a great disadvantage? But then later we heard from the Trump team, or it was perhaps Donald Trump, where he said they didn't expect him to agree. So he agreed to whatever, because now they were forced to debate him. Otherwise, they might have said, well, Donald Trump said no debate. It's kind of like the ceasefire in Israel. They throw up things and they expect somebody's not going to agree to it. And so I'm glad he agreed now, because he will take anything that's thrown at him and make it an advantage. And you know what? The muting, sometimes in that last debate, or the debate in 3.5 years ago, it wasn't the best look for both of them, just going back and forth. So, there could even be a positive where it doesn't get out of control. Just try to put a silver lining on it.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone is, you having watched Trump for so many years, that he navigates his way through these traps, through these minefields very, very brilliantly. Now, that being said, David, what do you think about which Biden we're going to see tonight? And what type of Bidens are there? Which one are we going to see?
See, this is kind of, the whole thing is a giant charade, because everybody knows what Trump is, okay? And everybody knows what Biden is. Biden is physically and mentally failing. It changes from week to week and month to month. So the normal Biden that we see is the one who is mumbling. He starts to say, oh, never mind. And he trails off, and he walks off, and he shakes hands with the air, and his wife has to come and lead him off the stage. And it's embarrassing. And it happens continually. And the internet is full of these videos. except for the video of his State of the Union speech, where the other Biden showed up, where he was angry and fiery, and he was talking so fast you could almost not even make out what he was saying because his words were going together like this. And there are doctors, including the former White House Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who says, okay, that he was the one who suggested the drug testing. And then also I had written the story for WorldNetDaily, quoting from Carol Lieberman, who is a very well-known forensic psychiatrist and expert witness in trials and things like this. She says, and she talks specifically about the other Biden, the one I just mentioned at the State of the Union speech. She says that behavior is a sure sign of methamphetamine, of amphetamines, or of Adderall. I looked up this earlier today. You know how many prescriptions there are for Adderall, which is a amphetamine drug, an upper in this country? Legal prescriptions, 45 million Americans are taking these drugs. So which one we're going to see, I don't know. And as I said in my article, we don't see the one who's like trailing off and like, oh, never mind, or the one that's like fiery. We may find that they've gotten the dosing right, and they've given him just the right amount so that he can stand on his feet and be awake and rehearse the things that 16 aides have gone over with him for the last week at Camp David, while Trump is out there fighting, gag orders, and he's going to be sentenced here and this and that, and everybody attacking him. And here's Biden, who's cordoned off for a week practicing for this debate. So yeah, we'll talk after the debate, and we'll try to nail down which Biden we saw.
I think we should be looking at what we should anticipate in this debate. For instance, will the moderators pace the questions so that they start at the beginning when Biden is less tired and run down from the confusion of this debate and the anger is growing at the end? Will they start him off with the more complex questions or the tougher questions and then make them pablum by the time the debate ends? Also, are they going to be asking questions about the things that are the most embarrassing failures of the Biden administration? Or is it going to be hands off? Like, can they get around the foreign policy that's led us to where we are today? Can they get around Afghanistan? Can they get around the economy? Can they get around the border invasion? I don't know. How are they going to soften that and distract to other topics?
And guys, I want to read some comments real quick that are coming in. We really appreciate your comments, guys, and we would love you to put those into the stream. We're going to read them. So the first one here is from ZMC33. Did Biden get his cocktail right? The burning question.
I think so.
Bodia says, will he have an IV off to the side?
Well,
I think so.
Here's the question too, Josh, is when you look at the, Biden hasn't been seen for about a week, right? They've been off, right, preparing, and Trump has been like Elizabeth, like you just said, fighting off the court cases. He's been at these rallies. He's been traveling all around, and it's kind of like when you look at like the Super Bowl, where the team that had the bye week, and they're coming into the game, but there's the underdog that had to play every week, and they come in hungry. It's almost like Trump, even though he has this, the big dog mentality, he is still kind of an underdog here. I mean, he does very well when he's fighting from behind. And I think coming into this with all of the control being put on by CNN and all of the advantages that they're trying to give to Biden, Trump is poised to deliver some really massive blows. I don't know. That's kind of what it looks like.
That's a good point. I like that.
Yeah.
Just another quick, this is a very important comment. I think we're all wondering, from Paul Riggin. Did Biden bring extra diapers to the debate?
I want to ask, did they give the Biden administration, or did the Biden team give to CNN the questions? Because we know this has happened before, which is so shocking. And it's almost as if for a whole part of the population, they don't even know that Hillary Clinton was given questions before in a debate. Will Biden's team have constructed the list of questions, or will CNN have given it to them beforehand? We have precedent. I think that he knows the questions in advance. They've all been written out. It doesn't mean he's going to win. And also, I just think that Biden will have an earpiece. And I was talking to somebody earlier and they said, look, you can see it. I said, no. The tiny little earpieces that the federal government can invest in, or the Biden crime family has enough money to buy the tiniest earpieces that are, you cannot see them unless you were literally digging into his ear canal. And no one's going to let somebody from the Trump team examine the ear canal of the president. So I believe he's going to be getting instructions, but I mean, does anybody else think that?
So we should add to the mandatory drug test, the mandatory ear examination.
Right.
Hey, the Q-tip exam, right?
Very good. Okay. Well, now that we know kind of like where we're headed here, let's take a look back at what we've what you should expect from a debate, what debates are supposed to be about, and also some of the highlights. So the producers here have prepared a good clip to throw to. So let's take a look at this first clip.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
One reason people are skeptical is because people don't answer the questions they've been asked.
We've never had anything like this happen in any of our elections before.
That was a great pivot off the fact that you once opened borders, okay? How did we get onto Putin?
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe.
My party is
and
me.
Socialist
right
healthcare.
Now, I am
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the Democratic Party is what I, in fact, approved of.
You shut up, man. Listen, are you in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow it.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, some of those really memorable moments. Others were good reminders of what to come, especially with the last exchange there. Convicted felon, right? Trump's a convicted felon. How many times are we going to hear Joe Biden drop that tonight, folks?
7.
Okay.
I heard that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, David.
Oh, so just watching that, it just reminded me that Biden is two things. He's a very, very angry man. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he's also a liar. Trump was calling him out on something. The Trump campaign put out this fact check Biden .com. It's a new website. And it's basically says Joe Biden is lying. And I looked earlier, there's one, they have a list, I think it's 21, classic lies that Joe Biden has told repeatedly. And honestly, it's stunning to read through. I've heard most of them before, but you read them all at once and you get the picture of somebody who is a pathological liar. That phrase has a meaning. It's not just we're calling names. He's a pathological liar. No, a pathological liar is somebody who lies for no particular reason. They don't have to lie. Bill Clinton, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Ms. Lewinsky. He was lying, but he had a reason to lie, to cover up something. Okay. People like Joe Biden lie for the fun of it. They just enjoy lying. It's hard to explain because it's so foreign from what most people, everybody on this panel and everybody listening, can barely relate to it, to somebody who just enjoys lying all the time. And if you read this list of this 21 lies, So a lot of them are provable. They're not, you can say, I did this, I did that, and nobody can prove it. Some of these things are like, I was brought into the U.S. Naval Academy, but he wasn't, and it's provable. A lot of the things he professes are just like, why would anybody do that? It's obviously untrue and provably not true. So the man has a serious psychological, spiritual problem that he is in love with lying. And so I assume we're going to see some of that tonight, because you can't defend what he's done with the country, with our border, with foreign policy, with having, little children who are too young to vote or drive a car, and he's for having them cutting their breasts and sex organs off. You can't defend all the things that Biden does without lying through your teeth all the time. So he was a liar before he was president, but now that he's president and committed to all these horrendous policy decisions and things that have happened, he simply cannot go forward and run for president or just live with himself without lying all the time. So he's created, I guess you could say, a reason for him to lie all the time, because he kind of has to, because he's done such a horrendous job as president.
I'd like to add to that the idea that the never Trumpers, some Christian pastors, not the majority, I would say, but would say, well, he's so rude on. I'm talking about Donald Trump, of course, rude and obnoxious on Twitter. When it was still Twitter, and they just don't like these aspects of Donald Trump's character or personality. I would say often it's just about personality. But I pose the question. Joe Biden is one of the most extraordinary liars of all time. He could go head to head in like who's lied more, the entire Soviet Union in the entire history of the Soviet Union, or Joe Biden? Because I don't know, when he claims that he was a liaison to Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir during the 6-Day War, she wasn't the prime minister during the 6-Day War. I mean, these lies are so insane. It's that first one, 21 most made up stories Biden has told as president. They're insane. And there are clips of him actually uttering many of these lies. And so here is a man who is amoral, psychotic, and here's a guy who's rude on Twitter or obnoxious or calls people names. What do you think is worse? I would say
the liar.
Obvious.
Yeah, I'll take the mean tweets any day.
Yeah, I'll take the mean tweets anytime.
Josh, do we have excuse me, are we looking at a bingo card? Is that something that we had? Dan Scavino, Trump's main man, right-hand man, put out on X, the Lion Biden, the Crooked Joe Biden debate night bingo.
That's right.
And walk us through some of these things here.
Yeah, so everybody at home, if you can grab this from X, Dan Scavino's X account, and you can play at home as well during the debate, and we'll know if Joe mentions that he's Scranton Joe, if he has a brain freeze or two. I'm going to guess that's going to happen. Another thing on the list is he's going to whisper into the mic. He's going to shout into the mic. Will he be saved by Jake Tapper? This one says fake Tapper. Is he going to touch his nose? He's definitely going to do that. Is he going to shout?
You know what I don't see up here?
What's that?
In one of the Trump Biden debates, he comes out and says, "Hey, man."
Right.
I mean, the word man, I cannot believe when that guy's man.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. But he walks out on a presidential debate and says, "Hey, man," to President Donald Trump.
Well, that's because he's the people's candidate, clearly.
Scranton Joe.
He's good old Scranton
Joe. That's right.
You know the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing. The thing.
You know, I want to mention something that about the economy that I just saw today on X. Firstly, I want to say thank you, Elon, because I don't know what this election cycle or this race would be like if Elon Musk had not purchased X. Because if you go to X and you put in debate night, just, no name, not Trump, not Biden, you will come up with a series of tens of thousands of tweets, millions maybe, and they are hysterically funny, and 98% of them are pro Donald Trump. And that tells you that is a big difference between the last campaign, when the federal government and or agencies and X or Twitter actually were colluding to censor. But there was something I saw earlier today, and I think it's brand new. A guy was shopping, went to his Walmart cart, and he looked. This is about the economy. He looked at an old order, and it was for a month's worth of shopping for him, what he would buy in the course of 1 month at Walmart online to be, I guess, delivered. And it was something like $114 or $40. I'm not sure what, 14, I think, for a month. He said, this is 2 years ago. He clicked on it to buy again. You could do that at Amazon, buy again. And the new total for his groceries at Walmart, the same brands, the same quantities, was $414 or $40. It was literally 4 times the amount. And I think the economy is something that everybody can identify with. And I think that should be the core of Donald Trump's arguments, because that's going to hit home.
And Elizabeth, that'll bring us to this next clip from Ronald Reagan, who kind of sets the stage for that sort of comparison. So if we have that clip ready, let's take a look at that.
Next Tuesday is Election Day. Next Tuesday, all of you will go to the polls, will stand there in the polling place and make a decision. I think when you make that decision, it might be well if you would ask yourself, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Is it easier for you to go and buy things in the stores than it was 4 years ago? Is there more or less unemployment in the country than there was 4 years ago? Is America as respected throughout the world as it was? Do you feel security is as safe, that we're as strong as we were 4 years ago? And if you answer all of those questions yes, why then I think your choice is very obvious as to who you'll vote for. If you don't agree, if you don't think that this course that we've been on for the last 4 years is what you would like to see us follow for the next 4, then I could suggest another choice that you have.
This is my favorite quote. I'm the one that sent this in because, firstly, Ronald Reagan, I loved Ronald Reagan, but that question is what is going to be on the mind of every American on the Tuesday of the vote. They may vote for Biden still because they just hate Trump and they hate what making America great again stands for. But everybody who's voting for Donald Trump, and many people who are secretly going to be voting for Donald Trump, liberals, they don't want to alienate their friends. They're not going to admit it necessarily, though a lot of people are, but they're going to go in there and into the polling booth, if they still have polling booths, and ask that question. And that's something that Donald J. Trump, his team, and every person who wants to save this country should be reinforcing every day for the next 4 months.
Absolutely.
Are we better off than we were 4 years ago? Oh, I love that guy.
Absolutely. Well, we're about a minute away from when the broadcast is supposed to start. I don't think they've kicked it over to that yet. So we'll stay here for a minute. I know we want to go through some more comments. I don't know if you have any comments ready. But David, any quick reaction there to Reagan's words from, wow, when was that, 40 years ago?
Yeah, I have Reagan's picture on my wall, several of them. He was a hero. Yeah, that is the issue. Are you better off now? And people have pointed out this is only the second time in our history where we've had two candidates who have each had 4 years as president where we can compare, and there's no comparison. We're better off after Trump than after Biden.
Yeah,
Amen.
I hope enough people realize that.
Yeah.
That's so true.
So just to prepare people for what we're going to do here tonight, once the debate starts, the rules are that there can't be any commentary. We can't be on live as the debate goes. So we're just going to broadcast it as much as we can before someone figures out that we're doing something wrong. But we'll right. That's the plan here, Josh.
Yeah, so we will be able to show you the stream of the CNN debate here. So we want you to stay with us. And we're going to be putting up your comments. So please go to YouTube, go to Facebook, put up any comment you like. And we're going to put those in underneath the stream of the CNN debate. So we'll get to see what you have to say. And we will watch the whole thing, but we'll come back as soon as we see that they're done debating or Joe Biden collapses on stage. We'll come back. The stream will come back on. We want you to stay with us. So we have a lot of great coverage coming. After, we'll have the panel doing the analysis of what even happened, what did we see, and we'll have clips of the best moments. So stay with us, and we're going to do a couple more commentary here until we actually see that CNN is done talking with their panel.
That's
okay,
great.
So it's 9:01 on my clock, and so they're late 1 minute already.
Go get them.
They're probably still dosing Joe.
Dosing, or they're fixing the buds in Biden's ear.
Some last booster shots, right? Some last boosters, and get them prepped up there. How about any comments in the any comment? I mean, are there anybody anybody else? Any predictions from the commenters on Facebook or YouTube?
Who's going to win?
I mean,
okay, guys, I'm just going to cut in here. It looks like the debate is about to start.
Great.
So we'll
see you.
Cut over there. Guys, stay with us, and we will see you in just a moment. Here it comes.
An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. Each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Folks, how are you? Great to be here. Thank you.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out a position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people, they cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back, religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted it brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers, significantly. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere, all over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed 3 American soldiers, That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There is no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these three incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved, choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost, but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine, never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything, no money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president, they attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I never said that.
For 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any, they were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting you got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question, would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time? And I said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. That what happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing, the Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on. up on Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea he didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor, having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you hear any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any presidents say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas, on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides." What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? This is the guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out, because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Here we go again. This election is heating up.
I can't wait to watch like this.
But the Daily Show news team is barely breaking a sweat.
Every new scandal just cancels out a different scandal until you become president. It's an ancient tactic called politics. I don't know, just pick one.
Not all elections are created equal. Some are much worse.
Wow, everybody. First half, they already fired off a lot. I don't know where the bingo card is at, but there's a lot of firing off of stuff. Elizabeth, just right there at the end, they brought up the Charlottesville, which Snopes just came out and said it's totally fake. Oh, we need your mic on. We need your mic on.
Sorry, we did
okay.
not have to wait for Snopes after 7 years to say it's fake, but they at least did finally after 7 years, after Biden has said it over and over and over and over and over again. It's a complete insanity that he brought this up, because everyone tomorrow or tonight is going to be talking about the fact that this completely debunked lie that Biden has repeated throughout his presidency, he brought it up again tonight. It's crazy.
It's incredible. David, what are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, I want to get into the Charlottesville thing after the debate when there's more time. But I really think it's totally over for Biden tonight. I cannot imagine that people can look at this guy tonight who's been resting and rehearsing for the last week and thinking that he can be the president of the United States and leader of the free world for the next 4 years. I I don't think there are like 10 people in the country who will think that. So the only, if they do keep him as the candidate, they'd have to do the most amazing, election rigging that's ever been accomplished. But I don't think that they will. I think that's our whole premise that we talked about before about why are they having this debate so early? It's because it's an audition to see whether Biden can really hack it. And I think he's failed in it just an absolutely spectacular, unbelievable way. And so I don't think he's going to be the candidate.
Yeah, Josh, you've been watching a lot of the reaction in the chat and everything. It really does seem, and I know obviously we have a particular bias in with our viewership here. That being said, I mean it's pretty obvious here to see what's going on.
I'm kind of in this state of horror, but also like I'm laughing because I've never seen anything like this where Biden is staring at Trump as Trump responds, but he looks like he's about to fall over. An open mouth stare with his eye looks a little strange. Everyone's noticing this now watching the stream. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like this. Also, this is the real test for America. You can't take this seriously. Okay, guys, and it looks like we're about to come back. So stay with us. We're going to come back in the commercials. Thanks, everybody.
Under your presidency, Black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge you made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for childcare costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those childcare protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any Black family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those Black families and those Black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest was forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the Black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking Black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back, 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, if the ACA has increased, I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. We find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges, I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing what any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He must undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people, but we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able to, the United States can't get its under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
so every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where I talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it. because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. By the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now, all of a sudden, he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody, number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did for virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming in the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that we're importing. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden.
You lost.
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot. And we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized, being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. The whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call that to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us, all of our allies, and those who he cuddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, he sends love letters to, and Putin, et cetera. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway, just take a look at what he says he is and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I had, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay,
let's not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's not act like children.
to a specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all, a required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Wow. Are we coming back after the break, or we hit that 90-minute mark? I'm not sure, but this has been a roller coaster. I mean, it's just been coming at us like a hose here. Elizabeth, what are you feeling right now?
Okay, I've been searching online to see if anybody is tracking the idea, and nobody is, because of course Google is only giving me NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, PBS. The stuff that Biden has been saying it's just so outrageous. I don't even know if we have time during this break to say anything about it. But I did love the point about the cognitive test that Trump made. I'll just end with that. The cognitive test, when Biden actually points to him physically and says, in other words, he's too fat or too heavy for his height. And I'm thinking, this is coming from a guy that the entire free world and the unfree world knows is utterly incapacitated mentally. Yeah. And he's going to point to Trump's physical. I think Trump looks great, by the way. He's in fighting weight.
David, David, how about you, sir?
I think a lot of people have been praying for Trump and for their ailing country and all that. I think their prayers are answered. Trump is at his best, very self-controlled. If you notice, right at the very end, Biden was openly baiting Trump. He's saying, you're a whiner, you're a crybaby, you're this. He's trying to get a reaction, trying to get something undignified coming from Trump. Trump saw it, he wasn't buying it. It's just smiling and shaking his head. So Trump is, God bless him, he is really at his best tonight. And Biden is seen as really the angry, surly, mean, malevolent person that he really is.
Yeah. And Josh, I made the comment in our private chat about how we have I think there's just so many great clips. We might just have to replay the entire debate. But so far, what stands out to you?
I mean, it is interesting to watch. Biden's got this ridiculous, you go high, I go low, patriotic thing. This is the best country in the world. I think people agree with that, but it's in no way in its best form right now. And I don't know many people that think things are great. I know a lot of people that are hurting, and Biden just reinforcing the fact that this is the greatest country really is just obfuscating the truth that the country is maybe in the worst position it's been since the 70s. And I think sadly, the only thing left is maybe the lines to the gas station. That may come if we keep heading down this road with everything that's going on in Ukraine and in the Middle East.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought Trump did a great job naturally bringing up his most popular phrase, which is "Make America Great Again." It didn't when he brought it up, it didn't sound like as if he was trying to shoehorn it in there. He really meant it, and it came at a very good point in the debate here. It looks like we might be headed back into the studio here. Is that
Yep.
true? All right, well, let's take it away in there.
Biden, you have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax, but he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Well, there you have it.
All right, let's come back in.
Okay, there we are. There we have it. That was it. 90 minutes of a of the Trump train, a rolling rim shot over the Biden camp. That was incredible. We have tons, folks. Thank you for staying with us as we're going to do a full analysis on over here at WND Live as well. And what we have is we've been clipping out, and we've got some great clips and great moments to share with you to kind of recap this. But high level first thoughts. Let's start down at the end here with David. What did you see here, and take it away, sir?
First of all this age talk, it's not about age. Trump is 78, Biden is 81. Thomas Sowell is 93 and still writing books, and he's totally articulate and an awesome guy. We just saw on June 6th on the D-Day 80th anniversary, all of the living vets there were at least 97, because there were 17 when they went in the military 80 years ago. They may have been in wheelchairs, but they were articulate and beautiful. So age is not the issue. The issue is this man is evil and demented, and it seems like he is. It's almost like he's falling apart before our eyes right now. I didn't expect to see him in such bad shape as he is tonight, and it's just it's kind of shocking. I'm glad, because he's bad for the country, and so the more exposed he is, like I said earlier, he is a pathological liar. He's lying all the time. He doubles down on his lies. And the only thing he can do when he's caught is to get angry and to say like nasty things to his opponent, in this case, Donald Trump. That's not going to cut it. And like, as I said earlier, I cannot believe that America, as confused and brainwashed and broken as many people are, I cannot believe that a majority of people are going to think that man can be the leader of the world for the next 4 years.
Yeah. Elizabeth, what do you think? I mean, the Biden that showed up tonight, I don't think it was the one that we were expecting to see. That being said, it was quite telling from our vantage point that this man has some serious problems going on.
I didn't expect him to lie about things that everybody already knows are lies. Okay. I just did not expect that to happen. And so when he brought up the fine people on both sides hoax that's been, and I mentioned it at our last break, I was flabbergasted, because I thought, no, they must have told him 10 times, don't say this. But then he doubled down and tripled down on that. He also said so many crazy things, and I was trying to write them down, and it was hard to keep up with it. But he says that everybody in the world, all nations of the world, trust America. And I thought, that is demonstrably untrue, because they cannot trust this administration. And do you think Saudi Arabia wants America to support Iran, their mortal enemy? No, they don't. They don't know from one day to the next and one administration to the next, because we've gone from Obama to Trump to Biden, right? We should not be supporting Iran, but everybody supposedly trusts America. No, they do not. They says that we saved Israel. I think that is a major overstatement. There were just so many lies. I can't keep up with it. I will say this. I was shocked about the Tapper bash thing. What did you all think about their performance? Because I thought that they got together in the conference room and said, look, if we come out at Trump like we do all the time and in past debates has been done, we're going to look so bad. Trump, as we know, after every time he's taken to court and treated unfairly with lawfare and all the rest, he comes out on top of it. And I think that they just basically said, you know what, for the sake of our reputations and for not supporting Trump by pushing him up in the polls, let's just keep it toned down. But am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. There was nothing like we saw in the past. There was no try to get you gotcha moments or anything like that. Yeah, they did keep it that way. Like I said, we do have some clips that we want to get to here. And Josh, I know you and your team over there have been clipping them. Do you want to set anything up here for us?
Yeah, I will. So we're gonna go to this first clip. I think this is Biden rambling off. We're gonna watch that right now. And here we go.
President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing that you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they were all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you may even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, that each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters. It's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
Wow, that was a save, right? Thank you. That came in.
Can anyone explain what in the world that was?
That wasn't the only time that happened, by the way.
Absolutely. And this was early on. That was early on in the night. It wasn't like he was winding down. That was kind of early.
One time Trump looks over and he was actually surprised, like,
President
what?
Biden?
It's been a terrible thing.
This is hysterical.
The fact is that
I don't know if you have this clip, but didn't he say very clearly that the Border Patrol endorses his position on the border? If that's not a lie, his nose should be this long.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that he said that. I don't remember too much of it, but I'm sure he said it.
He said the Border Patrol endorses his position on the border.
Right.
Yeah, he said it. And the Border Patrol, they have like people committing suicide and suffering from depression and quitting and so forth. They're so demoralized. It's unbelievable.
And this goes to the point that Trump was confronting Biden on about not firing anybody. I mean, you just had the Congress try to, or at least the Republicans in Congress try to impeach Mayorkas and get him removed from his position. I mean, Mayorkas is the guy in charge of the border, and if he was under Trump, he'd be fired by now. I mean, he may not have obviously been hired in the first place, but anybody with that kind of a track record who's in charge of the border, he'd be gone under a Trump administration. And right now, Biden lets him do whatever he wants.
Okay, guys, our next clip here is a back and forth. One moment here, a back and forth between President Biden and Trump.
Office on January 20th. I'll have
Are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion
Look at Biden's face.
now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion.
Frozen.
That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being
Biden's
killed
listening to
so
his earpiece.
needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
Yeah, incredible. And real quick for the viewers right now, those clips are live right now on the WorldNetDaily Twitter at WorldNetDaily over on X. So be sure you're following over there and sharing those clips and continuing the conversation. David, you had some thoughts earlier. I don't know. I mean, again, there's been so much discussion from tonight, but one of the things that Trump said, I'm sorry, that Biden said, and he accused Trump of having the morals of an alley cat. This coming from somebody who, you take
has the morals of an alley cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead.
By the way, just not apropos of that, but I was really touched by Trump toward the end when he said, "I'd rather not be here." Trump is very wealthy and he could basically do anything, go anywhere for the rest of his life. Okay. And, but he chooses to do this. And he says, it'd be better for me and for the country if this guy was a good president. Because he's being persecuted right now, which is part of the reason why his numbers have gone up in recent times, because the injustice of it, the sympathy people have for this persecuted man. But that was very touching. I did want to talk about the Charlottesville lie thing. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody was shocked that he brought it up, because it was a big story in the last 2 days that Snopes finally, after a left-wing fact-check site after 7 years, finally says, yeah, Trump actually never said there were really fine Nazis and white supremacists here. Okay. So, but he's Joe Biden, so he brought it up. But I wanted to bring up this point, and I wrote a piece. It's on WorldNetDaily right now. That's called something like, "Will Joe Biden be able to resist calling Trump a Nazi?" And he wasn't able to resist it. I want to explain why that is. It's not just because this is an election year and you're going to throw really nasty invective at your opponents. It's not about that. Okay, there is a specific reason why they call Trump Hitler, and they compare him to Hitler. And in fact, in the article, I go back and I show how, going back to Ronald Reagan, they were comparing Reagan with Nazis and Hitler, and all the way through, and Bush 43 and so on. It's a thing that the left does. It kind of goes to Isaiah 5, woe unto them who call evil good and good evil. Okay, but why are they so this goes back to 2015. They've been calling Trump Hitler, sometimes in oblique ways. Even on June 6th, on D-Day, Hillary Clinton, I have it in the article, the tweet that she put there, or the X post, where she says, 80 years ago we had to go and fight. We had to fight in World War II. Now all we have to do to not have a Hitler Germany is just to go to the polls in November. Okay, and I just want to put out there, the reason for this is because Hitler, Nazi Germany, if any one of us or anybody listening right now had been in Nazi Germany during the 30s and 40s, let's say during the 40s, and you had an opportunity to get rid of Hitler, remember they're equating Trump with Hitler, to get rid of Hitler by, let's say, rigging an election, you can end the Holocaust and end the horrible war, stop the deaths of millions of innocent people. You can do that by cheating in an election. It's not only moral, it would be immoral not to. It would be a moral imperative. There were 16 plots that we know of to assassinate Hitler. All of those people are heroes today. And I'm not talking just about Dietrich Bonhoeffer, okay, who was involved in the 20 July plot. All of them, the ancestors of these, the people back then were heroes, and their ancestors today, their descendants is the word I'm looking for. Their descendants today talk about them as being heroes. Okay, what's his name? Klaus von Stauffenberg. Remember, he was the ringleader of the 20 July plot. They made a Hollywood movie about him, Valkyrie. Okay, His descendants, I think they're in Britain. He is a hero to them. So when you're equating somebody with Hitler, you are saying it's not only okay to steal, to cheat, to lie, which is what the Democrats do. I hate to even say this, but assassination. It was
That's
a
right.
moral thing to try to assassinate Hitler. And there's a lot of talk going on now about, are they going to try to assassinate Trump? I mean, I hate to say it, but we have to say it. If you're accusing somebody of being Hitler, you are calling for his assassination.
That's
Sorry,
right.
that's the truth. And so, and we have to realize that with the left does not like any rules. Okay. They don't believe in God. Marxism is atheistic. There's no God. It's only them and their power and authority and all this crap about like, well, everybody's going to be equal. And, it's not really about that. The serious Marxists, Karl Marx himself, Stalin, Lenin, all these people, they didn't care about the downtrodden or about the gays or the queers for Palestine. They wanted power and revenge and money and wealth. These were psychopaths. That's what Marxism is really about. So
This is what I've been worried about too, David, because as you bring up, if you call somebody Hitler, would anybody on this panel, if they were transported back there in time, in the time machine, not assassinate Hitler? I'd do it. I've got guns here. I've got knives. I've got everything. I would have taken him out like this. I would have poisoned him. I would have run him down. I would have shot him. I would have stabbed him. I would have done whatever it took. And even if I had to die in the process, I would be responsible for saving some number of innocent babies, children, women, old people, and all those Jews. And so today I ask myself all the time, and we pray at the table at dinner time, we pray for many, many, many things. But you David brought up prayer earlier, and I think that was such an important point because we've been praying for Donald Trump in this debate. And I think the American people have, and I believe that David's point was really well made, that you could see this spirit in Donald Trump, how beautifully he handled this debate. But I would also say as well that we pray at our dinner table for his life. And I pray for the Secret Service because I hope they're up to it, because I wouldn't be surprised. And I don't know if that's bad to say, because I don't think I'm giving anybody ideas. I think that the left would take him out if they could. So was that bad to say? I think that's true.
It's the hard thing to say, and you're not the first to say it. It's things that we have heard, and you both have made some brilliant points here. One of the shifting gears a little bit, I think one of the terms that I first heard tonight that Trump is able to coin when he coins terms was this idea of bounce back jobs to kind of combat this sort of victory lap that the Biden administration is using to say how many jobs they've been able to create, when we all know that it was the Fauci regime, the Democrat governors, all sorts of things that happened when the Biden administration came in that where people lost their jobs during COVID, and we knew they were going to come back. I mean, that was kind of like the hope behind it. But to go around claiming that you've created all of these new jobs is pretty disingenuous. I don't know how many Americans are really buying that. But I give kudos to President Trump for calling them what they are, which is our bounce back jobs.
Yeah.
Any take on that from you guys?
I loved it. I really loved it. And I don't think many Americans are believing that. Everybody knew that, of course, once COVID, was over, that people would actually go back to work. I mean, many people chose not to, but a bounce back job. That's a brilliant term. I'm going to use it.
I would just add, I think that, and I agree with what Elizabeth said. That and all the other substantive issues that came out tonight were overshadowed by what people saw on the stage there. They saw They saw Donald Trump really at his best. He was relaxed. He was good humored. But he was, I wouldn't even say intense, but he was just like focused and strong. He's a strong man, okay, where he needed to be. And Biden literally disintegrated before the world's eyes. Okay, this is horribly embarrassing. The discussions that are going to be going on with the Obamas and whoever the real brains are, the people pulling the puppet strings behind the scenes, there's going to be some intense private conversations going on right now. What are we going to do? This man really, I don't know how they, again, back to my point, I don't know how they go forward and pretend. And, Karine Jean-Pierre comes on and says, yeah, he was so presidential and wonderful and everything. I just think at a certain point, it all falls apart. And it's like, nobody believes you anymore. And even like the kind of the lefty mainstream media there in the, at the White House in the press room, they're not buying it either, because they have a certain credibility that they have to maintain just for their profession's sake. So at a certain point, they have to sort of be fair just for self-preservation. So it was so astonishing to see Biden in this shape, and also to see Trump. Trump said, quote, "This man is a criminal." Okay. He said he is a Manchurian candidate. I have never really heard Trump, maybe I missed it, but be that, in your face, right 10 feet away from him, saying, you are a criminal. You should be going to prison, and so forth. This was very heavy.
I was wanting to highlight, because I don't know how many clips we have and what they are, but I thought some of his strongest points that he made was when he was hammering home that this man is the worst president in the history of the United States that has ever taken this office. And that was over and over and over again. He did not overdo it. Calling him a criminal was not overdoing it. A Manchurian candidate wasn't. But I think it's going to stick with people that here on this national stage, Joe Biden is repeating lies that have already been debunked, even by the left. And everybody else truly believes that this is the worst president in the history of the United States. Certainly, he's even worse than Jimmy Carter, which is really a hard thing to beat. And I think that that's going to stay with people. I thought it was strong. He did it several times, or at least 2 times.
Yeah. And folks, Biden, as was expected, Biden brought up the convicted felon, but that seemed to fall flat. I mean, that he only brought it up once. Right. Trump handled it well, and it sort of went away. And just like you're saying, what you initially started talking about here was how much Trump was calling him a criminal. So I think that opportunity just completely fell flat.
It did.
Do you have something there, Josh?
Yeah, my notes I wrote, I wrote the word sterilized and euthanized. Pretty much goes for the debate was sterile. Biden looks like he's near being euthanized. And David had the point of like, we're watching something pretty incredible tonight. Tucker Carlson uses this term like the great sorting. And these are these moments that are taking place in America that really make us kind of like, it's, people watching 2 different movies, but it's the same movie, is one thing Tim Pool has said. So some people see COVID as one thing, and the half of the population sees as something else. And now this, I think, will be one of those things where it's like you could just ask someone on the street, what do you think about the debate? And their answer tells you if they're at all awake to what's happening in the country, because I guarantee there will be people who you can say like, what'd you think about the debate? And they're like, oh, I thought, Biden did better than I thought, which is ridiculous.
No, there'll be people saying he won.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Flat out, he won. Yeah.
Yeah, those people have pronouns in their bio for sure.
Because if you're going up against Hitler, it doesn't matter what you are or what you said.
That is true. You could be a troll, a monster. You could be anything. And if you go up against Hitler, you're okay. I think I love what you were saying about the great sorting. I think so many of us have been looking at this. I hadn't heard that particular term by Tucker, but it is the wheat and the chaff. And we've been saying this since the Trump era. I mean, the first Trump term, because you saw the wheat and the chaff being separated out, which is a biblical term, but the great sorting is just a riff on that. And, Trump is blamed categorically as the one that created the divisiveness in America. And I will always remember, I went to the inauguration, and I think it was a day or two before that, they were calling for his impeachment. He hadn't done anything yet. Who started this great divide? But then the Lord's hand is in everything. The Lord's hand is in everything. And we even look at this debate, when Trump lost, that was air quotes there for anybody who's listening but not watching. When Trump lost, I couldn't help but think, but the Lord will use this for good. And part of it was because I was doing prayers live online, live streaming prayers as soon as everything came down in November through January. And I remember thinking that the Lord is going to make a great divide in America. And people are going to have to choose a side, choose God or government, choose righteousness or evil, choose liberty or slavery. There's so many choices being made here. And he's going to make this great divide. And he's saying to you and me, he's saying to all of us, what are you going to do with this opportunity? You've seen the greatest dichotomy between the Trump administration, those years, and the Biden administration, and the evil that we have witnessed in the last 4 years, plus the 4 years before, because of them going after Trump. You make a choice. And are you going to fight? Are you going to fight? Because if you're not willing to fight for your country, you have an opportunity. Then do you deserve the liberty? Do you deserve the heritage that you inherited? And I think tonight, just to close this, we saw that when CNN, Jake Tapper, Bash, all of this and these ridiculous rules were coming up. But what really happened? Biden kept poking Trump, insulting him in the worst ways. Trump didn't go off. Like, they wanted to have an unhinged Trump. He wasn't unhinged, but if he was, the mic was muted. So I think it turned out beautifully. I really do. And there's a great divide.
Yeah, that's great. Josh, tell us where everyone can follow, see these great clips, and what social media people can keep up with us here at WND.
Yeah, everybody, we're just thrilled that you stayed with us through the stream, and we're going to do a lot more of this on our X, all of our social media channels, which you can find us on Facebook, X, YouTube, Twitter. Well, I already said that. I guess I'd say Rumble. Hey, we really love people to go to our Rumble and subscribe. It's a brand new channel, but we're going to build it out, especially considering that censorship seems to be a real thing. And frankly, we have no idea how much that will increase in the coming months leading up to this, maybe the most crazy election in American history. Also, all the clips that you've seen, the best clips from this broadcast of CNN are right now on our X account. You can go there. Our name is WorldNetDaily. You can see some of the best clips that we've cut for you. And also, we would love that you would like and subscribe. Of course, that's what the kids say, to wherever you're watching this. Follow us. Also, if you go over to worldnetdaily.com, it's WND.com, you're going to see,
or worldnetdaily.com, either way.
Or WorldNetDaily, you're going to see some of the most informative news articles that are keeping you up on everything that we're up to, and the actual truth in the news, which is a pretty rare thing these days.
Yeah.
May I make a comment about the social? We had some 900,000 subscribers or followers on Facebook. And I just would like to say that Facebook has shadow banned us for, I don't know, a couple of years now, at least. We're actually starting to lose subscribers, and most of our posts don't go out to but for a few thousand people, because They are suppressing us. Please, if you are a Facebook follower or if you're watching us on YouTube, go to our X account, because that's what we're really going to be emphasizing there, because we know that that is going to, of all the social media, well, all the mainstream establishment social media accounts, there's going to be freedom of speech there. So please follow us at X.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, let's do a quick roundtable. Let's kind of wrap up the debate here. Some final thoughts, David. We'll begin with you. What should viewers and voters take away from what we saw tonight, and anything else you can share with us?
I resonate with what Elizabeth was saying a while ago. There was a kind of a spiritual component. I mean, isn't there always, right? But to what we're seeing here, even before the debate. Americans of sound mind are saying, oh my gosh, what is happening to my country, the country I grew up in? What kind of country am I going to have for my children and grandchildren to grow up in? Everything seems to be like, are we even going to have a country a few months from now if Biden is reelected? You look, China and Iran and the Middle East, these are dangerous places. If they have Joe Biden as president again for 4 years, my gosh, there's absolutely no reason that we couldn't just like easily fall into a major world war and nuclear attacks and all that. We're close to it already, but that's just like lighting the fuse. So I think there is this sort of spiritual, end timesy aspect to it beyond the political and cultural the times that we're living in. And so I look at this debate tonight in that light. It's almost like there was a curse on Joe Biden. He was unbelievably pathetic. He's the most pathetic people have ever seen him. And he was supposed to be at his best. He's been practicing for a week, rehearsing with 16 aides, and getting all the right drugs and everything. Okay, so he was pathetic. And Trump, as I said, was full of grace and love and at his best and knowledgeable, not stressed, not buying it, not being tempted by this little demon in Trump, like somebody said, always trying to get him, especially toward the end, just wanting to get a reaction so they could take that and make it into their next ad. He didn't give it to him. So I want to believe that God is answering our prayers. And that the truth was shown tonight, both in terms of Trump and Biden. And I just hope and pray that enough Americans see that and say, oh my gosh, okay, that the way is really clear. And make America great again is not some kind of swear word. Think about it. MAGA, these MAGA
Didn't the
people.
Nazis say that, David?
Yeah, MAGA, these MAGA people. Oh, what does that stand for? Oh, make America great again. Excuse me, explain again why that's bad to make America great again. So my thoughts.
Yeah, Elizabeth, go ahead.
I am so encouraged by many things. We have gone through this intersectionality and woke and critical race theory, where what the intention was, and still is, of course, DEI and all this, is to divide. And their diversity is based upon something completely useless and corrupt, and that is not a diversity of ideas, but a diversity like in a university or in any realm, in any institution. But you have to have a certain number of a particular race and gender and multiple genders, and this is intended to divide. One, of course, it's hatred of dead white men and living white men, of course, but it's intended to pit us against each other as if we're a bunch of tribes. And what I have noticed is that Donald J. Trump and MAGA, Making America Great Again, is not divisive. It is not divisive at all. It is a unifier. I am looking at my fellow Americans, brothers and sisters in Christ, brothers and sisters in our heritage, our birth, our birthright. And you know what I'm saying? Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, Middle Eastern Americans, Israelis, Jews, every kind of American coming together and saying, oh, I'm waking up. I'm seeing what's been happening in this country. The Democrat Party hates America and wants to destroy America, anarchy, in order to rebuild it in the image of a Marxist woke ideology or philosophy. And so I'm seeing, like I said, Americans, I'm going through social media all day and night long, and I'm just seeing all these Black Americans, Hispanic Americans saying, Cuban Americans, we're voting for Trump. Biden, the Democrats take us for granted. They don't love us. They're not supporting America. They're destroying us because of the border. They're destroying us, taking us into wars. Our economy is being destroyed. Our children are being destroyed. Everything is being destroyed in the hands of the Democrats. But I can have diversity a unity with all Americans who love freedom, who will defend our Constitution, will defend our borders, defend our flag, defend truth and liberty and justice, and whose God is God and not government is God. And so I think Trump is a unifier, and there's a new unity.
Amen. Well done. Josh, I'll throw it to you for some final thoughts as well. And then I just want to get a quick take on where people can follow you on social media too. So Josh, add that into your comments here.
Yeah, no, I thank you guys. I think this is great. We're going to do this again. You can find us here. You can find me here at WorldNetDaily. We're going to be doing a lot of content. One quick thing here. A group of my friends have rated Joe Biden the worst president, and that he's full of malarkey.
159 of your friends?
Yeah.
Fantastic. David, real quick, where can people follow your work and follow you on social media?
As far as social media, just the WND X accounts and others that were mentioned before. I don't do it personally. If they want to follow me, come to WND.com, WorldNetDaily, and also they can go to davidkapelian.com, and that is my article archive. Everything I've ever written in the last 25 years is there. Wow. And that's
27 years.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Elizabeth.
I'm only on X, and I just started doing it just since October 7th. So I'm a little baby Xer, and I have like 600 followers. So follow me and get me to 650. And then of course all WD stuff. And maybe someday I'll branch out to Instagram. But I'm only on X right now.
Good. All right. Well, we'll be sure to do that. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Matt Edwards. You can find me on X at True Matt Edwards. I'm the same way. I'm primarily on X. That's where the free speech is happening, as Elizabeth has pointed out today. So once again, thank you so much. Go to the X account to watch all of the great clips. They're still being posted as we've been speaking here, and so please share those and comment. And I guess we'll wrap it here and keep tabs on the next time we bring you some fantastic news and content right here on WND Live.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. God bless.